Hey guys, my name is Neel and welcome to Neel Workshop Zone. So in this episode we're going to be talking about the exception handling. So in our previous episode we talked about Python maths or some functions related to mathematics which can be used in Python. So if you haven't checked out that video, I recommend checking it out. So in this episode we're going to be talking about Python exception handling. So what is exception handling? Now if you have watched my Java series, in there I talked about what exception handling is, and even though the major concepts are true, there are still some details which aren't true, which does not carry on to this programming language. So let's talk about what is exception handling. So as the name suggests, exception handling is basically handling an error or an exception that happens after you run the code. So imagine, let's take a simple example. Let's say we wrote class Neel. Let's say we wrote print ads. Now if you analyze this, you'll immediately understand that this is a false class. Like this has an error in it, because here I told you print ads, but I haven't defined the value of ads, nor have I mentioned that it's a string by adding inverted commas. So you don't know if it's a value, or if you don't know the value, you don't understand it, and even if you do write it in the code, it'll probably print an error. So what to do if you have this same doubt of whether it will work or not in a larger piece of code. So imagine writing a long piece of code, and imagine there's a part of a section like this where you don't know if it's going to work or not. Now that is where TryCatch comes in. So TryCatch can be used to handle an error. So what you can do is, in the same thing you can write try and you can write catch. So by using these keywords you'll basically understand if the error is present there or if it's not present there. So that is how TryCatch works. There is still a little more, we'll talk a little bit more about this in the practical episodes, about how TryCatch works, when you use variables, etc. But for now we'll be talking about the main concept of exception handling. So like I said, TryCatch is used to catch if there's any errors between the piece of code. So now let's say, instead of writing TryCatch, we just say something like x is equal to 2 and print x. So like I said here, this time it won't catch any mistake because, well, it is a correct class since as I mentioned the value of x. So imagine it doesn't work. So now we can say something like else print something regarding this an error or something like that. So what else does is, like the loop itself, it basically takes it basically converts, or it basically flips the value. So for example, imagine we wrote here to catch x is equal to 2, and if it doesn't work that way and works the other way, it'll say else print, or the code will function else print that value. So let's say we wrote here try x is equal to 2, print x, and we told it to catch. And if if it's wrong, then immediately it'll just stop the value, and as it's correct over here, it'll print some value, something like it's not false or something like that. So that's how else works. So now let's talk about the remaining types of it. So now let's talk about finally. So finally is also used in the same way as TryCatch, but instead of using TryCatch, it can be used to just run the code. So imagine you have some piece of code, class Neel, and you wrote multiple TryCatches like try, x, like print x, and try print y, and imagine there's a lot of code like that, but no matter which type of code it is, you need to make sure that one piece of code compulsory works. So what you can do is you can use the keyword finally. So by using the keyword finally, what the system does, it basically says no matter what happens over here, it basically has to print the value, or basically has to print what it says. So if I wrote here finally print x is greater than y, something like that, it it will print it, because no matter what happens here, it will finally print it. So that is how finally works. And now let's talk about raise. So like the name suggests, raise is basically used to raise an exception. So imagine for some reason you want to raise your own type of exception. So let's say we wrote something like x is equals to 2, or let's say we would like to print x. And imagine you want to raise an exception that needs to be something for you to understand. So instead of just writing exception at line 4, something like that, imagine you want the exception to be understood by you simply. So what you can do is you can do something known as raise. So you can raise exception this value doesn't exist, or something among those lines. So by doing this, what basically happens is it basically thinks that there's some exception over here, and it immediately raises an exception. So this can be used to create your own types of exceptions, etc. So this is kind of just an introduction to exception handling. We'll talk more about this in the practical episodes. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this small video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out any new videos. And that's all folks, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.